So good afternoon, friends. I hope all of you are awake, or should we start with some yoga? Anyway, since I think there's enough group here, let's have an interactive session. I'm so glad to be here, and I thank the organizers for having invited me and allowed me to moderate this session. This morning, as I was getting out of my house to come here, wearing this jacket, a neighbor had also stepped out of his flat. So he asked where I am going. I said, I am going to this seminar on IoT, Internet of Things. But then I thought you work on agriculture. The question was loaded. It's like, what has IoT got to do with agriculture? For many people, kind of me in a jacket and talking about agriculture is kind of incongruous. When you talk about agriculture, you ask a college student, the image that at least that comes to their mind is somebody in a loincloth or somebody pushing a plow. Agriculture used to be a lot of brawn at one time. But today, agriculture is also a lot of brain. So there is a lot of relevance for technology in agriculture. Now, we are used to agriculture for so long that we think everybody knows everything about agriculture. I don't know if, I think the history of mankind, at least civilized mankind, the civilization, runs in parallel with the history of agriculture. It was the advent of settled agriculture that led to the civilizations. If we are sitting in this hall and discussing about Internet of Things and connecting it to agriculture, it is because we have had settled agriculture. If we were still hunters and gatherers, I'm sure we would be worrying about where we will get the next coffee, whether we should go after the gazelle or the boar or whatever it is. So technology has a huge role in agriculture, and I think the keynote three talks emphasize that point, and it is becoming more and more relevant today. India is still an agrarian economy. I don't know if many of you agree with me, because if you look at the contribution of agriculture to GDP, it is probably about 14%. When we got independence, agriculture sector used to contribute 50% to the total GDP. Today, about 60% of the GDP is contributed by services sector. Agriculture is only about 14%. It has come down. But why do I still say that India is still an agrarian economy? I think it's because 50% of, or more than 50% of all working people in this country are engaged in primary agriculture, in primary food production, in primary fruit production. And if you take the allied sectors, like value addition and stuff, nearly 60 to 65% of working people are engaged in the agricultural sector, dairying and stuff like that. Now, Indian agriculture, many people try to highlight that, has got many peculiarities. So, on the one hand, you have fragmentation of land. So, the per capita land holding is small. So, does that mean the scale of agriculture we have in this country is small? No. The scale that we have in this country is huge. You talk about the arable land in this country, 126 million hectares, which is second only to the United States. If you consider the cultivated area, because in many of these arable lands you can take more than one crop, 185 million hectares, one of the largest in the world. You take most of our crops, most of the areas that we have under the crops, rice, 44 million hectares. You need to take China and put the 10 other countries together to get that kind of a scale. You take cotton, now it's 12 million hectares, 11-point-odd million hectares, the largest in the world. You take most of the crop, we will be up there, either number 1 or number 2. So in terms of scale, if you talk about the area that we have for agriculture, it's huge. 150 million farm families, about 50 million farmers in this country. You know, these are bigger than the population of some continents. That many people are engaged. That's the kind of scale that we have. But look at the paradox. This scale is actually made up of small units. We don't have too many 1,000-hectare farms. We have 1 or 2 hectares, the average size. So you have to reach the scale or address the challenges and the problems that such a huge agricultural system has by solutions which will actually work in a very small scale. In other words, we talked about farm machinery, we talked about Internet of Things, how a web can enable precision agriculture. One of the challenges that we need to face is, how do we make these technologies scale neutral? We cannot have technologies which will work only if you apply it to a farm which is 1,000 hectares. It should work as well for somebody who has 1 hectare of land to if somebody has 100 or 1,000 hectares of land. That's one of the challenges. Second, we need to make these technologies affordable. Now, you can't have a cotton picker which costs $5 million, and no farmer will be able to do that. The way to make it affordable, of course, number one way is to make sure that you try to optimize the cost, make it very efficient in terms of producing it, develop technologies yourself so that you don't have to pay somebody else. But the other way of making such things affordable, I believe, is to try to copy the Uber or the Ola, the aggregator model. So we should really look at technologies which will lend itself to that kind of an aggregator, so that farmer need not own that machine, but there will be somebody who will provide those services and they will be able to avail of them. And because overall we have a huge scale, the cost also, I believe, overall may tend to come down. There are many, many other challenges which we need to address. People talked about climate change, water availability, reduction in the amount of inputs, but I can go on and on. But I will get on with this session by stating that all these can be looked at as challenges, but they are also huge opportunities. They are huge opportunities which are waiting to be capitalized on. And we need to look at agriculture as technology intensive, because going forward, we need to make sure that agriculture brings more and more income to the farmer. It is no longer a way of life. It is, many people, they don't have any other choice, so they are remaining in agriculture. Some people will come out of agriculture. The proportion from over 50% of workforce in agriculture will certainly come down to 30 or 40. But certainly, whether it's the IT industry or the manufacturing, they cannot be engaging all these people who come out of agriculture or who remain in agriculture. So agriculture has to be made more profitable. In fact, I want to remind you that which is the largest private enterprise in this country? The largest private enterprise in this country is agriculture. If you aggregate all the farmers, even in terms of size, each unit of that may be small, but the largest private enterprise is agriculture. So there are many opportunities and many challenges. And as the compere introduced, we have a very eminent panel here, people drawn from various backgrounds, from different organizations. And I think I will not stand between you and them. The way I want to structure this panel discussion is I will request each of them to give 5 to 10 minute kind of introductory remarks. We have time till 5:15, I guess. Is that right, Aravind? Aravind, is it 5:15? Okay, so we have some time. So we will have an introductory remarks, and then we will open it out. We will have an interactive discussion, and I expect all of you to contribute to the interactive session. So let's start with Dr. Srinidhi. He is a practicing farmer, He has got, I think, some land in Chamarajnagar district, if I'm right. Okay, HD Kote. And, but then, he has been trained as an engineer. He has worked in NASA. And now he is associated with the Indian Institute of Science and several other bodies. It is very rare to get this kind of a combination of a scientist, trained engineer, practicing agriculture. I am hoping that in future, you will have more and more such people coming into actually practicing regular agriculture. And that's one way of pulling up our agriculture, infusing technologies, doing it in a logical way. So, Srinidhi, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Very pleased to be here. So while the earlier speakers were on, I wrote furiously on some of the things that I wanted to talk to you about and bring awareness to many of these challenges in agriculture. When Dr. Amalur Pavanathan started, I struck off the first one-third of the things I wrote because he covered it all, until Dr. Ramnath came and the second third went away, and Dr. Kaundinya completed it by scratching everything out. So I really have very little to share with you besides what these wonderful speakers have spoken about. And therefore, I'm going to get down to my personal experiences and speak about my activities and what I do and the challenges that I face. In the turn, I will introduce you to my farmers. They're all called Hanumas, I don't know why. There is a Dod Hanuma, Hanuma, Chik Hanuma, and a Mari Hanuma. All of them are my farmers. They have been with the family for many, many generations. They have been with us. And they, in my opinion, are the wisest of the wisest of the wisest people that I've come across when it comes to actually cultivating out in the field. I come from a place called Saragur, which is about 3 kilometers south of Hegadevan-Kote, 20 miles from Mysore, very close to the Kerala border. And we have some very peculiar ecosystem and challenges that is very contained to our district, or our area, really, if you will. So the road that goes from Mysore to Manandawadi, which goes into Kerala, goes through Bandipur and Nagarhole forests. And lately, there are too many issues with animals getting killed and all that stuff. So they have banned entry of commercial vehicles between 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And therefore, our area, Saragur, is a beautiful place because people don't come there other than if they want to go to Kerala. And now they don't. They go through the Ooty road. And Saragur is about 4 kilometers from the Kabini Dam. So we are in the catchment area. And therefore, we really have no issues with water. We have perennial water. Just water comes out of the ground even if you don't want it. On top of that, we have some wonderful non-advisory services, which Dr. Kaundinya spoke about. We get water when we don't want water because whenever the dam is full, they release the water. And we always find out the next morning. When the whole fields are inundated, we know they have let out water. So there is no mechanism for us to figure out when the water will be released and when it will not be released. But besides that, I think water is not an issue, so we are really not worried about conserving water and all that stuff, if you will. Our biggest problems are totally different. When we speak about smart agriculture, I'm very of the firm belief that all the stuff they hear about smart agriculture and precision farming and water management really applies to people who have more than marginal holdings, maybe 100 acres plus. It makes sense to them. For an area where a typical holding is 2 acres to 2.5 acres, all these techniques and gadgets and devices is not very affordable for people to get involved in. What I do for a living now, besides doing whatever I do during daytime, I do grow considerable amount of paddy. I do grow bananas and ginger. Now, why do I do that? Traditionally, we are not, we don't grow anything besides paddy in that area. And also, the paddy that we grow are very localized to that particular marketable region. I say marketable because if I grow any strain of paddy, I can rest assured that it will not sell. Eventually, I'm in the business, the farmers are in the business to earn a livelihood. And therefore, chasing specific strains of paddy the deep-rooted one that does not require water, or the red rice. All that is nice. Perhaps I can grow that for personal consumption and things like that. But if I have to make a commercial living out of it, I have to grow what the market demands in that area. We're very close to Kerala. We're about 7 kilometers from the border, and our biggest paddy crop that we grow, the strain that we grow, is called Jyoti, which is a parboiled rice. And that is what makes us money. Then we speak about techniques like precision farming. The idea is great. Again, it will work for people who are in the upper strata of social hierarchy in terms of large land holdings and things like that. It doesn't work for us because we are a kilometer away from the border of the Nagarhole Bandipur forest. We have lots of problems with animals. We are about 30, 35 plus miles as a crow fly from Rangantittu, and we have a serious bird problem. So the elders, Hanumas included, we all get together, the entire village gets together and decides who grows what. And invariably, whoever grows, X variety of a crop has to follow suit on whatever the other fellow grows. Very simple. If I grow paddy and somebody else grows sunflower, it's a matter of a few hours before the birds will devour the entire sunflower crop. And it's the same thing for even paddy also. So what we do is we all get together and say, hey, we shall all grow corn this summer. We shall all grow paddy this summer, simply because we want to amortize the loss of the bird problem across a bigger area. And all of us will have to do the transplanting and the seeding all in a matter of few days, less than a week. Because the fellow whose crop matures a week before the others, he is prey to the bird problem. And therefore, we have a very peculiar situation. Precision agriculture, the weather might be right and the water might be there, all the stuff will not work for us. We all have to do the transplanting pretty much in the same week. And the affiliated problem with this is you don't get labor because it's a very constrained quantity. You have about 50, 60, 70 people who go about doing transplanting in the area. And as soon as he finishes with A, he comes to B, finishes and goes to C, and things like that. So it's a very peculiar problem. The cost of labor, obviously, as you would know, over the last 6, 7 years has quadrupled, and it's very, very difficult to get the labor. And when you do get the labor, they don't come as a unit. Some come in the morning, some come in the evening. Our transplantation season gets elongated, and it creates more problems. So many of us have now invested in these small 4-lane transplanters. And that has been a boon because until such time, we started doing this about 2 years ago. And before we actually introduced the concept of transplanters, there were a lot of concerns because when they do a manual transplanting, people do tend to put a higher density of plants in a square meter. And somehow the perception is the higher the density, higher is the yield. And that we have now proved that is absolutely not true at all, because using a manual mechanical transplanter, we are now able to control the row size and the width. And for every 2 seedlings that the machine puts into the ground, we get about almost 60 to 70 tillers. So it's very, very healthy plants. And that has been a big thing. So many of us have now shifted to mechanical transplanters. And because there is a geometry in the transplanting business, we have now invested in a small de-weeding stuff. And that has worked very well, so our de-weeding cost also has come down. What has not come down for us is the cost of harvesting it. Typically, if you have, we rent out these machines from Coimbatore and all over the place. They are very expensive. They're about 2,400 rupees an hour, and they are very expensive. But these machines will do the job they do about 1 acre an hour. So in a day, you can pretty much finish 10 acres of harvesting. You can tumble it, dry it, bag it, and you are done. So we are not dependent on the vagaries of rains because halfway through the padding, harvesting season, if it rains, there's a lot of problems with it. So many of the technologies that we talk about are not necessarily targeting the paddy farmers. One thing Dr. Continia said is, farmers are becoming younger and younger. Actually, that's not true. The owners are becoming younger and younger, but the farmers are becoming older and older. Because the children of the farmers that are out there in the field, they are not coming back to the field anymore, because now they have seen the goodness of the cities and maybe better education, so nobody is coming back to the field. So we are now dependent on mechanization and the wisdom of the older farmers who are actually the tillers. The owners are definitely becoming younger and younger. I see quite a few of them here, much younger than me. And it is shifted from paddies to a little bit more expensive crops like banana, and ginger, and sunflower, indigo have become very prevalent in the area. So this I will stop. I still have a lot of things I can cover, but I will let the other panel speak, and then we can take this discussion forward. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Give me the mic, but I don't think it's working, so I will not use it. So I think you raised several interesting questions. Whether the new technologies will apply to small farms. Marketing is a big issue. How do you address that? And I think a lot of you are holding similar thoughts, and we will have questions. So hold on to those thoughts. We will go with the next panelist, and I would like to invite Sanjay, Bhatikar. Now, thank you. Sanjay leads the R&D center of Monsanto, and as some of you may know, Monsanto is one of the largest agri-technology companies in the world, and they are now looking at integrated solutions, bringing to bear technologies like internet, IT, data processing. Some of you may also know that they have recently taken control over a meteorological company, SkyMet. And so those kind of issues, I'm sure Sanjay will talk to us. And how do you actually customize those technologies which may be applied or applicable in other parts of the world to actually an Indian situation, the situation which Dr. Srinidhi kind of described.
Right, so good evening, everyone. I'm really proud to be standing here in front of you and sharing some of the excitement around agriculture, right? And as correctly advertised, I currently lead Monsanto's biotech R&D in India. And what I'm going to do is see, what has happened to our company is the whole value proposition has changed, right? The value proposition of yesterday was how do you make the best possible seed and put it into the hands of the farmer, right? But your job after that was done. The value proposition today is after you have given the seed to the farmer, what else do you need to do to ensure that the farmer gets the most out of that seed, no matter what the weather, no matter what the soil, no matter what the market conditions. So I'm going to get a conversation started today of some of the emerging value propositions in the field of ag, particularly relevant to India. And as we look at this new value proposition, we are not going to look at manufacturing companies, right? Those were the value propositions of yesterday. We're going to look at companies like Amazon.com, Uber, and WhatsApp. So those are the value propositions I'll share with you today with a little bit about how these may change the game for agriculture. Let me start with Amazon.com, right? It's okay, thank you. It's a $100 billion company that has less than $1 billion in assets, right? Where does the valuation come from? What is the biggest asset that Amazon has? That asset today is actually big data. It's data, and it's lots and lots of data. Thank you. I'm comfortable with this, right? And with this big data as an asset, what has Amazon done? They have really mastered the art of answering one and only one question. Who needs what? Where is it to be found? And how do we get it into the hands of those that want it, right? And Amazon does it so well that they even know what you want before you want it. So for example, when it was Father's Day, Amazon was able to tell me whether I should buy my father a drill or a tie based on my previous history of purchases, right? Now let's bring this back to the farmer. What we are finding is when we put together information about soil, about weather, about the crop, we are able to do remarkable things for the farmer. For example, KKN mentioned about our acquisition of Climate Corp. Its Climate Corporation is a $1 billion acquisition that Monsanto made. It was founded by two people from Google. And like Amazon, Climate has one and only one asset, data about climate anywhere in the world, everywhere in the world, right? With this data, plus data about soil, plus data about our own crops, our corn, our cotton, our vegetables, we are able to tell farmers that you are going to have in 15 days from now a pest explosion. And since we know that and we are able to predict that very accurately, here is what you should do about it. So the Amazon kind of proposition is really helping us put the right information at the right hands, in the right hands, at the right time, so the right action may follow. Let me move on to Uber. Let me ask you for a show of hands, how many of you have used Uber or Ola in Bangalore, right? Great. The funny thing for me is when I go back to my company's headquarters in St. Louis, there's no Uber, and I really miss it. And I tell them, look, we in Bangalore are far ahead of you, right? And that's true. Because if you look at the Uber business model, they are, as KK Narayanan pointed out, they are just an aggregator. Again, they don't have assets, but they, by their ability to use a sensor, which is a GPS sensor, which is small, cheap, ubiquitous, exists on every cell phone, they're able to answer one and only one question extremely well, which is who needs a ride, who has the car, and are they together in time and space at the same time when you need a ride and when the taxi driver is available, right? The interesting thing, is that just Uber has been able to magnify the income of chauffeurs in Bangalore 4 times. They make 50 to 60,000 rupees a month, whereas previously it was 10 to 15,000 a month. Let's bring this back to agriculture, right? When McKinsey did a study of farmers globally, and especially with a focus on Asia and Africa, among the top 5 challenges that farmers face, one was the shortage of labor. Can you believe it? Shortage of labor in India, where we have 1 billion and more people, right? We won't go into the drivers of this shortage, but the thing is very clear, the writing on the wall is very clear, that the future of agriculture, autonomous vehicles are going to be a necessity. So we are finding then when we take farm mechanical implements like this helicopter that we have shown here, a fairly cheap helicopter that costs less than $100, with sensors from the world of the Internet of Things and agricultural inputs like Monsanto's Roundup herbicide, which is shown here, we are actually able to reduce the farmers' dependence on labor and help them make more money. Now, none of this is going to be new to you, right? None of this is going to be new. Let me tell you one thing that is new from the perspective of business and weaving a successful business proposition around this. The challenge is not putting sensors on a helicopter. The challenge really is solved by the John Deeres of the world. The challenge is, how do you get farmers in India to come together and share their equipment? Because none of them can afford to buy all of this equipment to run their farm, to run their business in a sustainable manner. Think about it, if it was raining outside and I had an umbrella and you wanted to borrow it from me, would I not worry that am I going to get my umbrella back? Unless I could put a GPS sensor on that umbrella and track it and know where you went with it, how you used it, and feel reasonably assured that you're going to bring it back to me. What we are trying to do differently in smallholder geographies is to put GPS sensors and other sensors on farming implements and instruments so farmers can share them with a great degree of comfort that when I give you my helicopter, I know that you will use it appropriately because I can track where it is going every day that you're using it, and I have a reasonable assurance of getting it back. So this is about autonomous vehicles to reduce dependence on labor, but also more importantly to dissolve the elements of mistrust between farmers to get them to share comfortably and profitably. The last example I'm going to share, and this is really the last one, and I'll stop after this, is WhatsApp, right? How many of you have WhatsApp on your phone? And think about what you use WhatsApp for. It's about what do you want to share, and who cares about it, who has an interest in the information that you want to share. And none of this is, again, new or even interesting, right? But here's the interesting thing. You'll probably ask yourself the question, what is the value of information when we all share it? Is the signal not likely to be overwhelmed by the noise? Because none of the people who are sharing are experts, right? Here's the interesting thing. Study after study after study has found that when people share information, a kind of collective intelligence emerges, which actually is better than even expert advice. You heard Srinidhi talk about how farming in India is extremely local. So farmers talk to each other, they share on WhatsApp. And often when they put their heads collectively together, what they're able to come up with is actually better than information that any expert from a Monsanto like me or from an agricultural university is able to provide. So we are finding that when we put the mobile phone together, provide a platform where farmers can start having a conversation, and the critical thing is give them the ability to judge the value of the information shared, upvote or downvote, This collective intelligence really helps farmers solve their own problems. I heard about a great example just yesterday from Srinidhi, who talked about a new implement that he found from Korea that allows him to break up his soil and also kills all the weed because it chops them into little pieces. What will happen today is Srinidhi will talk to a few farmers around him in the Mysore area. They will learn about it, they will buy it. But how will it get to a rice farmer in Punjab? How will it get to a corn farmer in Bihar? How will it get to a cotton farmer in Andhra Pradesh, right? When we provide a platform for farmers to share their knowledge among themselves, we find all of this magic happening, better than any Monsanto, better than any agricultural university anywhere in the world can do. So with that, I'm going to stop with one little proverb from Poland, right? This proverb is, if the farmer is poor, then so is the whole country. There is no way we here living in Bangalore who aspire to a very prosperous India of the future, there is no way that can happen unless our farmers are prosperous. And it is important, as KKN pointed out, we never lose sight of that, right? But the whole game of farming is so much occupied by middlemen. But technology can break their hold. By technology, I mean big data, mobility, and the Internet of Things. We here in Bangalore have the intelligence, the ecosystem to put it all together and give integrated solutions to farmers that change the game for them. Thank you. That's all I have to share, and I look forward to the Q&A with you.
Thanks, Sanjay. Thank you. Very elegant examples of some technology platforms which can be leveraged to create more value in agriculture. I think we will have a lot of discussion on some of these areas as we go along. But before we get into the open session of discussions, let's have the last panelist share his thoughts. Dr. Prosenjit Bose. Dr. Prosenjit actually leads R&D and innovation in Rallis India Limited. As some of you may know, Rallis India Limited is a Tata enterprise, but Rallis itself is much older than the Tatas. I think 2 days back I came to know that Rallis is actually 164 years old. Yeah. So I think maybe a decade or more older than the Tata group itself.
Yes.
And they have been in the agricultural input space. If you really want to know, for many, many years, I think they have direct connect with the Indian farmers. They call it, what is it, Rallis Kisan Kudum, right? Okay. Rallis Kisan Kudum is probably the largest grouping of practicing farmers to whom they use agricultural inputs from Rallis. And your target, I guess, is to get about 5 million people onto this platform. Yes. Today it is 2 or 3 million, but to get 5 million people. And Prosenjit is actually leading several initiatives which uses some of these new technologies. You heard about the helicopter, but I think he and some of the other scientists in the group companies are trying to leverage drones to do some of these work. And they have a program where they are trying to, Samrit Krishi, where they are trying to give advisories. Well, I don't want to steal your thunder, no, Prosenjit. Okay. I think, please share your thoughts.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I think it's rather easy for me now after post-lunch, all eminent speakers, they highlighted the major areas or problems, concerns, and even the panelists, those who are sitting. So I think I will just skip the ones instead of repeating the same thing. But as Dr. Narayanan said, that Rallis as a Tata Group company, we are committed to do something for the farmer. And we are in this business for several years or decades. And we have several plans. Of course, success will depend on a lot of other things, the commercial success, etc. But we have taken up lots of new initiatives. I would like to just highlight that what are those kind of initiatives and why you have taken it. What are the hurdles we are facing in those kind of initiatives? So if I can take you to the next, this is the big picture that what we need as we move forward. And I think, it was said by more than one speaker that we need a lot more food, a lot more product output has to come in next 20, 30, 40 years. So I'll skip this one. This one is on farmers' expectation from mechanization in agriculture. Again, this was highlighted by most of the speakers. As you see, there are certain mechanized versions available, but not for every farmer. I would say it is for the rich farmers, those who can afford, particularly if you go to Punjab and Haryana, and so they can perhaps afford, and then some belts in Maharashtra. But for average farmer or a poor farmer, we need to provide some cheaper solutions. And we thought that this is an area where Tata should work or Rallis should work. And I'll share with you. This is another aspect, that is the TUAV or the drone-based pesticide delivery. The concept, when it was discussed jointly between the group technology office and our R&D team, that should we get into this or not, one thing we all agreed that getting labor in future will be very, very difficult. And the labor cost for spraying pesticides are also going up. So 5, 10, 15 years from now, the cost will go up and we have to spray. And someday we have to start spraying by different means. So why not we explore this kind of UAV-based delivery? So this project also we have taken up, and this is the standard way of spraying pesticides. There are two kinds of, one is, as I said, the labor charges. Second, is that the exposure to the person who is actually spraying it that manner, because he is continuously exposed to that kind of toxic chemicals. So if we can do something where a person can do it from a remote place just using a remote sensor, he can do things very fast and can protect himself. So that is the idea, and the couple of things which we have done on this is that we have procured 1 or 2 drones, but there are a couple of issues. That one is, right now there is no permission to do a study, but we are trying to do some pilot studies. Second problem is most of the drones which are relatively cheap, but their battery backup is not for many hours or many minutes, not forget hours, many minutes. So there are some technology has to come where this drone can fly for longer hours without replacing the battery. Then the efficiency will go up. And second part is, the life of a drone has to be minimum 5 to 7 years. Otherwise, it will not be viable. So we are working with a couple of local drone manufacturers as well as the group offices in getting in touch with some international few players. So hopefully we'll get a right kind of drone, and hopefully in 2016 we'll get some permission to get into some pilot studies so that we can come to a conclusion that this is viable or doable or not. These are all about sprayers. As you see, these are the sprayers which are available. Some harvesters available. Now, what Tatas are planning, that this picture, as you see, this is coffee seeds, I think. Yeah, coffee seeds. So coffee seeds and the cotton. So we are trying to design something indigenous, because we have a couple of group companies like within the Tata group, that they can design some instrument and a cheaper manner in a cheaper price, and then maybe we will be able to offer it. So again, these are all on a conceptual stage and a pilot stage rather. Hopefully we'll be able to come to a conclusion by 2016 end or so. This is another project called Drishti. It's a very interesting project. I think this is the only project where I can share something new. That it's a satellite-based monitoring of activities in the field. The concept is that there are sensors which are placed on the fields, and from a remote location, by using the satellite, one can monitor the various activities happening on that particular field. So what can happen that, like, what we have tried that can we make an accurate forecast of that what kind of pest attacks are going to come. So in 2015, we chose two, three areas where we put those sensors and we tried to collect the data and wanted to see whether, let us predict in advance and go and see what is happening there. And I would like to share you with the same data. As you can see, this is AIMSA is our partner in this technology sharing, who are having that satellite control. They have that satellite control and this all data processing ability. And the input for CA is CA in our terminology is called crop advisors. They actually go and advise the farmers. And input for management. So this is how we actually followed the process. If you see, this is the result of Guntur district, which we tried this year. This is for, one is for chili and one is for cotton. And there were incidences of thrips, whitefly in both cotton as well as in thrips, and the other one in chili. And you see, this is the soil moisture index. It is actually the satellite picture, what you see here, which was captured by the satellite camera. And this is how the data was processed. You know, this is further micro. I think it has the ability to detect up to some square meter. I think it is 250 square meter is the area I think it can capture. But it can be further fine-tuned to about 1 by 1 square meter precision. So based on this, and again this was for Bellarui district, again similar study was done. For rice also we have done. So this is the outcome. You know, if you can see the outcome, here it says that except in one case, whatever was the prediction, it happened accordingly. So we considered even 7 days before whatever was our prediction, actually that same thing happened, same manner, and accuracy I would say about 90%. And you have to understand it is in the initial stage or trial stage. So our target is to expand this to in a broader studies throughout India. And if we are able to, if you are able to, capture it in a nice manner, and as Dr. Narayanan said that, we have a 1 million RKK farmer database. Basically, we are directly connected. We are taking a new step to make it to 5 million farmers. And actually, we have everybody's mobile number, details, everything. And if we can send them an advance alert, they can take appropriate action of spraying the pesticides for a particular kind of pest incidence in advance forecast. So his damage or losses will be significantly minimized. So, and we have thought so far that we are not going to charge for this activity because as a part of the same family, because they are our RKK farmers. And hope if we are able to successfully launch this program, we will be able to scale it up across India for many crops and for all the geographies. And some benefits, I want to skip this part, sorry.
Prosenjit,
Yeah.
take two.
Yeah, no, I'm done. So this is, you can see the SMS format, how we send the messages, that the name, etc., and then the forecast details comes in the SMS format. So this is how the farmers are getting benefited. And thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Prosenjit. So I think you heard about some initial experiments trying to leverage some of these technologies to deliver benefit to farmers. And now let's open it up for discussion amongst all of us. Now, before that, a few questions. I know that most of us, if we trace back our generations, we would have all started as farmers, or some of us may be continuing. How many of you are continuing to do farming? Okay, I can see one hand, a few hands going up. How many of you your immediate parents, they were into farming. Okay, good. So I guess most of you are here because you are thinking of entering farming through technology. Some new ventures, new enterprises. You would like to hear about entrepreneurial opportunities. Am I right? Good. So we had the first speaker, Dr. Srinidhi, talking about some of the challenges. You have machines, but you can't use them when your agricultural land is small, the scale is small. You have issues with marketing your produce. Sanjay elaborated on how you can use some of these technology platforms to create value. He compared it with the Amazon model, right? So there are huge opportunities there, and our Indians, if there is an Amazon, we can immediately copy it with a Flipkart or many other things. Now, Prosenjit talked about a group like the Tatas experimenting with some of these issues. I'm sure there must be many, many challenges. Many of these things, need not be or cannot be done by a single entity, or all the wisdom certainly is not in one head. There is opportunities for everybody else. So let's start out with the Q&A or the interactive session. People who have questions, please raise your hands. You identify yourself and then you direct the questions. Ask most of the questions to these people, okay? Leave me out of it. So,
okay. I have the
do
mic.
we have a mic which can go around?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. My young friend there in the black shirt.
Okay. My
sorry,
name is.
I'm sorry, we couldn't see you because of
No,
the
that's okay.
glare of the light.
That's okay.
Okay, I think you can come up to that.
So my name is Anant Bhatt. I am a member of the IISc. I had read somewhere that one of the biggest disservice done by engineers to the humanity is the way the pesticides are distributed. I believe close to 99% of it, I read somewhere, is wasted. It's just that 1% actually does a good job of killing the pest, right? So I think many of the technologies we are talking about is because we are comfortable with these technologies. Is there anything happening on reducing that percentage so that harmful fertilizers doesn't get into the soil and in turn do a lot of cascading damage?
No, that is a valid concern. I think we are talking about misuse or overuse of some chemicals. Obviously, any technology has to be used appropriately. We will come back to that, but let me take a question from my young friend here with a black shirt. We will come back to that.
Hi, my name is Vasant. Can I divert your attention to
what you're doing or what you plan to do?
I'm an entrepreneur. I also work with Target Accelerator Program. I have some interest in agriculture, mostly in urban farming, and so wanted to get your thoughts on how do you see urban farming catching up in the cities, at least to offload some portion of the crops that the farmer may repurpose in either putting, flour or something else instead of growing tomato and chili and so on and so forth. So what do you think about that? And also, is it time for non-hereditary farmers to come into agriculture, and is the policy open for that?
What was the name again? Vasant. Vasant, your question is about urban farming, right? So that's a very interesting idea, and it is still an emerging concept. What you will find is when you do urban farming, you will have many of the challenges that also happen in farming in the field, right? Related to pests, related to disease. And many of these problems are solved better in the field by virtue of breeding, because the crops are bred for the field's format, for the agronomy that is specific to the field. That whole model has been around for a long time. So what really needs to happen for urban farming when you're growing plants on terraces of buildings or in other configurations is there needs to be a breeding effort to support plants who are amenable to that mode of farming. And that breeding effort is still emerging or non-existent in its very early stages. So challenges related to pests, challenges related to disease and how they spread will actually multiply. Your use of inputs like pesticides could be much more, all right? So there needs to be a focus on breeding. If you look at the history of agriculture, and especially technology in agriculture, whenever people have tried to introduce technology by saying, okay, breeding is not important, technology will replace it, companies like Calgene, etc., they have invariably faced very stiff challenges. So that someone will need to provide that focus for this whole idea to be successful. It's a very interesting idea, and I hope it succeeds.
Thanks, Sanjay. I think I just want to add a couple of things. I think in urban areas, as we know, we see it in Bangalore every day, the biggest challenge is to get land or the space to do your farming. A couple of weeks ago, we had a big seminar in Bangalore on vertical farming. I don't know if you noticed that. And as I was entering this hotel, I don't know, you would have noticed in the front facade, on the wall, you got plants growing on the wall in the vertical direction. So there's a big emphasis on vertical farming. I do concede and agree that an important aspect of that is to breed the crop to suit the vertical, but there are also many mechanical innovations, methods to fertilize those plants, method to allow them to access the light, because if there is plant one over the other, you need to make sure that there is some method by which you can access. So these are all developments that are happening, and all those are primarily focused on cultivating plants or crops with minimal space. Do you have anything to add, Prosenjit? Or, okay, are there, okay, madam, yes. We'll take the next question.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Sumuti, professor at Dheeraj Lal Gandhi College of Technology, Salem, and a farmer as well. I help my husband in taking care of our farmlands. Okay. So you were talking of technology into agriculture and specifically IoT. With the type of scenario in India, like the connectivity and the cost of operation for connectivity in rural, that is in farmlands, how successful do you think implementation of IoT would be?
Yeah, this is better. I'll give you a very short answer. When I grew up in the 80s, we had the same question with respect to the automobile industry, and people said with advanced automobiles coming into the country, where do we have the roads to support them, right? But the automobiles came and then the roads improved, and today they are significantly better than they were. So I think it can be a win-win if we introduce technologies and creates enough of a pull for the infrastructure to improve. Invariably, when the telecom companies and others see that opportunity, they jump on it because it's a win-win for them as well.
Any thoughts on that?
Let me give you an example of, where I would use technology. Do I need to use technology is a different question based on scale. I have about 6-7 acres of G9 bananas, yeah? The problem with banana cultivation is you have to harvest it at least 2 weeks before it's ready to be consumed. Because of the transportation issues, it'll get damaged. Now, I grow tissue cultured ones, so a good number of bunches of banana become ripe in pretty much the same time period, maybe 2 to 3 days or a week at the most. So one way to look at it, in fact, the only way to look at it is look at the color of the banana, particularly at the tip when it starts just about changing from green to a light yellow. But then, you see, it's still a 50-50 chance that you are right or wrong. If you plug it at the wrong time, the damn thing will not ripen at all, unless you smoke it and you put peroxide and all kinds of stuff, which we don't do. Yeah? So we have a project funded by DST. We have a couple of students working on it. What we intend to do is equip the farmers with a nice smartphone with a decent camera, so that at least they can photograph it. It's uploaded to an app which will compare the color levels and say, hey, it's 2 weeks to go, 3 weeks to go, 4 weeks to go. So that's a very minimal investment. It's not like you have to buy an equipment to figure it out. So some of these things will help. Or if you know a specific, particularly if the leaves, any say paddy or any other plant, if the leaves start becoming brown or yellowish towards the tip, there is a problem with excessive water. Or if there is a blight or any other thing, you can always photograph it and post it on a portal without actually having to get an expert onto the field. You'll get some idea. So this, in my opinion, is the minimal thing that you could do to bring in technology. I'm not even talking about sensors and any other fancy gadgets. Simple camera would work.
Good, thanks. Thank you, Dr. Sumati. I think you raised a very pertinent point. We are talking about introducing some of the latest technologies into agriculture. But at the same time, we have several challenges with basic infrastructure in many of these rural areas. And we don't have roads, whereas in many other countries, you don't face this situation. No, they have come a long way in building their kind of infrastructure, and this is a kind of a continuous progression, the introducing new technologies. Whereas for us, it's kind of leapfrogging. You have to take, I think, several steps above some of these challenges to still introduce the technologies. So this is probably a unique challenge posed by the situation that is obtained in our country. And I remember, I think, Mr. Ram Kaundinya in his talk, he posed it as a challenge, and he said that, we should leverage the mobile phones as one of the medium through which we should actually deploy some of these technologies. Maybe can you elaborate on that a little more, because that is relevant to this particular question. Here, your phone on you.
I think you have pretty much said that we do have this issue of connectivity and various other infrastructure issues. And as we can see that today, the proliferation of apps and the proliferation of using anything related to our daily life for the urban people is so much based on mobile. And the mobile has really been able to bring everything to our doorstep. Similarly, it can happen for the farmer, and then you don't need all the other infrastructure that we have talked about, except for the telephone, the mobile towers and things like that. What it will also do is that, this is my visualization. I feel that even if you have to distribute smartphones free of cost to the farmers, that cost of acquisition of the customer, which is what the IT companies look at, will be still cheaper. And then once you are able to put it in his hands, then you have got him on your hook, right? So that's how you look at it. In urban areas, we may go and buy, but the farmer may not be motivated to go and buy a smartphone. But that's where I said that in fact, this is also a question which Mr. Srinidhi mentioned, that many of the young farmers don't want to live in the villages, and the last NSS survey showed that 40% of the farmers don't want their children to take up agriculture. And one of the serious issues is lack of infrastructure, lack of basic facilities, and what Dr. Abdul Kalam called as the urban facilities in rural areas. That's what he always talked about. So if we can't build that, at some stage the youngsters will come out of villages. They don't want to stay in the villages. I think putting some of these things on the mobile and reducing the daily drudgery of the youngsters in agriculture, and what I call making agriculture more glamorous. You have to improve the glamour quotient of agriculture. Otherwise, it will always remain an area which the youngsters will not pick up. And I think putting things on the mobile will improve the glamour quotient of agriculture. That's what I think.
Let's move on to the next question. Yes, you there in the blue shirt, blue or dark blue.
Okay.
Yeah, if you can talk loudly.
Okay. Can you hear?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So I'm Anuj, and I'm working with Intel. So my question is that today we are talking about usage of mobile devices or technology. Don't you think, considering the literacy rate of India, illiteracy can be a big challenge in the usage of mobiles and stuff like that by farmers itself?
I think his question was, given the literacy rate that we have in this country, would illiteracy be actually a challenge in the deployment of this technology?
Correct. When I was listening to Sanjay, I saw usage of WhatsApp, and we can share information through technology. But at certain point of time, illiteracy will be a factor, will be a challenge, wherein farmer doesn't know they are illiterate.
You hit the nail on the head, right? But there are ways around it, because people who cannot read or write can still speak. One of the things we have tried at Monsanto, and I wouldn't call it out as a success yet, the jury is still out on this one, is use IVR. Today, IVR is a very interactive voice recognition. I believe IVR is, that's what the acronym stands for. But we are able to a limited extent, those farmers who absolutely cannot take or receive messages in any other way, they connect to this IVR system and they get help in 18 different languages. There are ways around it. Whether they scale or not, the jury is still out, but we are trying.
I have something to add.
Yeah, sure.
Of course, long back, I used to be an agricultural extension officer. And I used to work with farmers. In my experience, illiteracy of the farmer, illiteracy means, he may not be able to read and write, but he will have the common sense, the wisdom. He didn't have the opportunity to go and study in some place to learn English or talk like us. Will not stand in the way of he adopting a technology if he really sees value in it. And when I studied agriculture, we used to learn that the farmer in India is a laggard. That means he's illiterate, he's poor, he will not change, he will only do things which he actually sees. But for him today, I can tell you with some amount of experience that if he sees a value in something, forget about whether he is able to say bombastic words, he will know how to use WhatsApp or whatever is there, and that will be the driver. I also want to add, as technology developers or as potential entrepreneurs into this area, we should also think about ways by which this doesn't become an impediment. If you go to the US, you go to McDonald's or somewhere, and you see many of these people standing behind the counter. They don't type, Big Mac or something like that. They actually see a picture of it, and then they press the button. And, the machine actually does the whole thing. I'm sure, see, that is the power of technology. You don't have to actually say, I want to spray, glyphosate. No, not necessary. I think if he says this problem, he pushes that, and that's what I think we should be looking at it. And if you want quick adoption of these technologies, I think we should actually, one, create real value, tangible value. That's very important. If you don't have, see, for the farmer, it's not like feel good and stuff like that. I think for many of us who have disposable incomes, I think if a film star advertises a face cream or a toothpaste, we'll go and try it out. But for the farmer, I think it's a question of his livelihood, his next day's existence, or sending his children to school. So once they see the tangible benefit, they actually quickly adopt or adapt their ways to accept those technologies. Anybody wants to add anything more? I think we can, yeah, please. On this subject, or you want to add a new question?
No, I thought I'll add to what you're saying
please,
with my experience, plus also a few comments on what I've been hearing till now. Okay, one is adoption, right? When it comes to technology adoption, I think they're much smarter than everybody else. So, but when it comes to adopting technology within a farming community, I've seen that work much smarter than anybody else in any other industry. The reason is they have a very uncanny way of iterative value add that they would like to measure. They will never do a big jump. So I have a farm which is around about 10 acres of farm. We took a farm which was uncultivated for about 25 years. We said, okay, we want to make it green and also grow something with zero pesticide. So unheard of for them, right? So it's zero pesticide, not cultivated any time and all of that. So to really get them on to make that happen over the next 10 years, it was a small experiment which they adopted much faster than we imagined is worked there. But what they wanted is technology that works for them and they can use on their own. If you have to depend on somebody else to come back and then actually train them and motivate them to do it, I think that's where we actually saw a lot more issues coming up out there. So one of the comments I had in the same thing what we ran through now, we looked at technology more from a point of technology for the sake of technology. But if you really come back and say that, okay, technology for the production capability or efficiency or eliminating their issues, I guess their adoption is much faster than we can really imagine.
I think, thank you. That's one way of looking at it, and I think there is merit in what you said. But I want to counterpose it with some experience this country has had recently. You said technology adoption will be an iterative process, and the farmer will adopt it faster if he has complete control on the technology, or he can deploy it himself, or he can develop it himself. That's one scenario. Obviously, there must be situations where that is the case. But I just want to take the example, which in the last a decade, maybe slightly over a decade, we have had a technology, a new development, which all of you know, which is transgenic or GM cotton, or BT cotton. Globally, the increase in area under GM crops was happening at 10% CAGR year on year. Okay? In India, in 2002 was the first year it was introduced. 35,000 hectares was the total area. The rate of adoption over the next 6 years was an average of 160. That is, it was more than doubling year on year. By 2007, the total cotton acreage was saturated. Now, I mentioned about tangible value. Obviously, the farmer would have seen a tangible value. But this is a situation where I don't think the farmer had complete control over the seed production. It was actually managed by several seed companies. I don't know whether you call more than doubling year on year as an iterative, a slow progression. So there can be different situations. I think Sanjay also wanted to add something to this, right? Yeah, please. Huh?
Yeah. So cotton farmers.
India is, I think we should also realize, if you want to really see diversity, whether it be in behavior, in our cultures, in our cuisine, in our religions, I think India is the place. So you can have an example for every situation in this country. Yeah,
Well, I'll circle back to the question that the gentleman here asked, right, about pesticide usage. There are really 3 approaches, and I think this makes a nice segue into his question. There are really 3 things you can do to reduce pesticide use. One is you breed better crops. But breeding taps into a genetic pool that is already on its way to being exhausted, right? So there's nothing really radically different you can do after the first 10 years of a breeding effort. The second is traits, the transgenics, what KKN spoke about and what Monsanto has pioneered and other companies have brought to India and other places. And the third is microbials, right? And let's be clear, right? Any solution has to have all 3 components. You have little microbes which can improve the plant health, improve their ability to take up nutrition, and a stronger plant can fight pests better, right? So you need less pesticide. Any approach is going to have to depend on all 3, right? But if we take away one approach completely, it's like tying the farmers one hand behind their back and saying, go about your business. And in a world where the rest of the farming community is moving ahead at a 10% CAGR or higher double-digit CAGR year on year, it is really putting our own farmers at a disadvantage. So while I agree that a lot of innovation can happen from farmers themselves, there are things that farmers can do very well, and there are things that companies can do very well. And I think we should really strive for a balanced approach, to be successful as a farming community and as a nation.
Sure.
Hello. Yeah. See, about the pesticides, since you said, and I have been part of many initiatives and forum, and my company is also in the same. And I just want to tell you for your information and for the rest of the people in this room that India is one of the actually lowest user of pesticide compared to Japan or China or US or Europe. In terms of you can use any per hectare basis, any crop basis. We use lesser amount, number 1. Number 2 is because I interact very closely with the Delhi Central Insecticide Board officials and CLI, the testing agency, the director of that. And let me tell you, nobody in those who are appointed by the government of India, they are not at all unhappy with this, because it is more like a media creation of that using more and more, lot more pesticides kind of. So media has right to do things for their own reasons, but it's not that that the government agencies are against it, because as long as you use as per the prescription, like use this many gram or this many kilos in so many hectares or acres, you are perfectly fine. Your MRL is very important. If the MRL is within limit, there is nothing wrong. And in fact, last year, you may recall, there was a lot of media hype. Followed by that, the central testing laboratory, they have collected samples from on random basis. And they have collected 50 or 60 samples, I remember. They found every sample is complying with the MRL. Now, the same pesticides are not only marketed in India, it's all over the globe. So, now if you do not have it, then what could be the impact with the farmers? It could be huge impact. I can share with you one small example. I was in a northeast tea garden in Assam. And one tea garden that belongs to KDHP, they decided not to use any pesticide. And rest of the all gardens are maintained and managed with the recommended pesticides. And I mean, when you go and see the leaves of the tea, you can make out that so many red spider mites and mealybugs, etc. They have, and mosquitoes, the tea mosquitoes, they have damaged the tea crop. So the yield or the output of that is 40% less than the normal field. Now imagine if that happens with the entire field, what will be the rate of per kilo of tea in India?
Thanks, Prosenjit. So it's not about, okay, we'll hold on. I think it's about responsible use within limits, and as recommended through scientific investigations. I think we have less than 15 minutes before we conclude this session. And how many of you are entrepreneurs here? Okay, so let us try to bring it round back into discussion on innovation and entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And
can I ask one question?
I think I will come back to you. I think there are some people who have not asked a question yet. I will come here and then I will get back to you if there is time. Yeah, please. You need to switch it on. But please go ahead. I think I can repeat the question. I can hear you.
I'm an entrepreneur. I'm also a practicing farmer. Few things that was not addressed by the panel, but in general was talked about by various presenters. One is post-harvesting. Post-harvesting, storage, and reaching it to the market. I think in India, we are not doing it in a very systematic manner. There is room for that. We have good cooperatives where the products land up after the farmer has plucked a coffee seed and dried it in the sun and then reached it to the market. You know, many of these produce are getting adulterated, as well as they are carrying some spores of fungus, or they have been dried in unhygienic conditions. When it reaches the society, let's say if we had small sensors or devices which we could see what toxins are there in it and grade the material and segregate them, many of the high value products that the farmer puts into the market, like pepper, maybe nutmeg, maybe many high quality spices, tobacco, etc., would be, you know, in a way we could reach higher value for the farmer. Second is we could educate the people who bring in unhygienic products or toxin infested projects, you know, they could, you know, get educated on it.
Agreed.
The second thing is, you know, we are talking about malnutrition in India. There is a lot of nutrition which is being produced in the farmer, you know, in the farmhouses. Backyard of farmhouses, typically you have jackfruit trees, you have plantain trees, you have chiku trees, you know, many of these people are, you know, taking those fruits, but they are not in a position to reach it to the market because the scale of transportation cost versus the amount of produce that is coming in their houses, it is not reaching the farmers. It is not reaching the market. Many of these farmers are marginal farmers. They may be producing 6 to 7 plantain, you know, stuff, but they are not, they need about 100 of them to put it in an auto and carrying it to the market. If there was a supply chain system which could capture all these at local farm level, local gram level, and be able to collect them and be able to store it in a cold storage and reach it out to the market, a social entrepreneurship, if you will, and the profit share would happen, that actually can attack the nutrition problem.
Sure, I think good points, and points are taken. And I accept that post-harvest processing and value addition is a big area and need to be addressed. And I will leave it to the panelists to know if they have some points. But on the second point on malnutrition, it is also associated with lack of resources in the hands of people, their purchasing power. Because you said about jackfruit or something, one jackfruit during the season, that particular thing is about 3 rupees or 2 rupees if it's a good one. So that could be the issue. So they may not be as simple as, as we talk about it. There may be solutions to it. The biggest solution to it is empowering people by getting more resources into their hands to get it. But I will actually let the other panelists
in Bangladesh, I know that there was a program where the Grameen Bank used to provide cycles to some of the people who would go around in the village, collect some of these and carry it to the market. I heard this. Yes.
So I think, what you said is absolutely right about these post-harvest losses. And last year, there are certain forums in Delhi, and all big stalwarts, they all highlighted this. And I think the losses are in the tune of more than 40,000 crore, which is a big loss. And the reason for this is that in some pockets or some states or in some districts, this, I would say the pipeline or the sourcing supply chain system works out very well. In some pockets, it's not that way. Then you may know that, last time before this new government, central government came, there are already issues of that FCI go-downs are without, the water is getting inside, then rodents are going inside. So it needs actually a huge amount of relook and investment by the government. And initially, though Tata's once thought, should we get into it, then we thought it is not our cup of tea. It's such a big thing, but it's definitely a valid point. And I'm sure some progress will happen in this regard.
Sure. Unless anybody has any pressing point. I know that we are under the tyranny of the clock, and I can actually see the time up sign showing up here. So we have to wind up this panel discussion. Anybody has any last pressing question? Yes, a quick one.
Well, okay. I think Dr. Sanjay made a case about Uber and things. So in one view, Uber is more a business innovation with appropriate technology supporting it. Is there any business innovation happening in agriculture, like corporatization of agriculture or cooperatives to a bigger form? Is there anything happening by comment by experts? Anything
sure,
on the
corporatization? There are
corporatization
several innovations happening, but I would let Sanjay. No, his question was, you talked about Uber. Those are more of a business innovation backed up by technology platforms. So he is talking about in agriculture, are there any business innovations happening, like contract farming, storage, aggregated, storage. I think there are several that are happening, and we can discuss it maybe offline. I think with that, we will try to wind up this session because we are already at about 5:10, and we need to close this session. I must thank the panelists first, who have all contributed to the thinking that has happened within this room and also shared their experiences. I must thank all of you who have very actively interacted to make this session, I think, quite lively. Thank you very much.